with tremendous force behind them. And this gun was designed to knock out other tanks at about 2 or 3 kilometres away. And how it fires is a piston is put in the barrel of the gun inside the turret, a bag of explosives behind it. They aim the gun, and it's tremendously accurate in aiming this gun. When the commander says fire, the explosive goes off, it pushes that piston out the end of the barrel, the sides of the piston fall away, and a metal dart flies towards the enemy tank at supersonic speed. And that metal dart is quite often made of either tungsten, which is twice the weight of steel, or what they call depleted uranium. It's a waste product from the nuclear industry. And the metal dart has just quite simply got so much force or welly behind it, it's what they call kinetic energy. It doesn't have to go back at all, it just quite simply burrows its way through the enemy tank and out the other side, and it leaves one hell of a mess. So it is tremendously accurate. They got this gun 98 times out of 100 to be able to hit a target 2 kilometres away with the very first round. So putting it simply, if this thing's pointing at you, it's going to get you. It is a very, very effective gun. The armour on the tank is very thick, and when the Russians got thicker guns on their tanks, they added more armour to the Chieftain. As you can see on the front of the turret, these extra cheek plates either side of the gun, that was to thicken up the armour on the tank. There's a 4-man crew on this vehicle, 3 guys up in the turret. There's a commander, he's obviously in charge of everything, looking out for where the driver's going. There's a gunner who sits in front of him who does the aiming of the gun. And on the other side of the turret there's a loader. And he's the one who picks up these rounds, puts them in the breech, followed by a bag of explosives. And if you're picking a tank crew, always pick a loader who's built like a Russian shot putter. You need someone who's short, stocky, plenty of stamina. Because the rate of fire of this tank will go down as the loader is getting worn out. And in tank versus tank combat, quite often it's the guy who can get the rounds off quickest that's going to win. The driver's right down the front of the tank. He's almost laying on his back in what they call a supine position. By being nice and low instead of sitting up, it means the whole tank can be lowered. And the lower the tank you are, the harder target you are to hit. Again, so a very effective tank this was, a Chieftain. So thick armour, tremendously powerful gun. The downside was it had an awful engine. This was the era of British Leylers, and the engine in the back is something called the Leyland L60 engine. It was supposed to take multi-fuel. It's supposed to, you could put petrol, diesel, even a bottle of vodka in it. The downside of that was it didn't really work very well. So unfortunately, it was the one thing that left a really great tank down with the engine. When foreign countries bought the Chieftain off of us, they insisted they put a new engine in the back. Now you hear how noisy this tank is when it moves off. Now one of the effects of the tank, it's not just that gun, it's its psychological effect. If you can imagine you're an infantryman and you hear that thing coming towards you, you can understand you've got to be a pretty stoic character to hang around with that. So the noise is part of its effect really. Again, they paint the tank camouflage colours, but you can see, look, we can see it wherever it's going. So you hide the tank to the last possible moment. What you don't do is actually parade yourself to the enemy like that on top of a mound. You use the landscape to hide yourself. And the great thing, like I said about this gun, is a fully stabilised gun. It can lock onto a target wherever the hull's going. It will lock on and remain on that target. So actually, it wouldn't do what it just did, which is stop and fire. This tank tends to fire on the move. And if you can fire on the move, you're a harder target to hit from the enemy. Now, one of the things they claim the 4-man crew was this is the central in their attack. And in actual fact, they would lock the crew inside this tank in concentration exercise for 72 hours. Now, if you can imagine doing that with your family at home, locking yourself in the smallest room in your house, 72 hours on the trot, you can see why tank crews got to get on with each other. 1990s. It was replaced by a tank called Challenger 1. You can see that in the museum. We now have a tank called Challenger 2 in service. Very, very good tank.